Open up your books to page 740. Today we're going to be working with chapter 9, lesson 7, focusing on how to discover the area of a triangle. Now, the first thing we need to actually remember when we begin to understand how to find the area of a triangle is how to find the area of a parallelogram. And it's important that we remember to find the area of a parallelogram. It is area is equal to base times height. Base being one of the sides of the parallelogram, and the height being a perpendicular line that goes from the line that we're calling the base up to the very other side of the parallelogram. And sometimes that is shown as being inside the parallelogram. Sometimes that can be dropped from the outside, but it is going to be from the base to the top of the parallelogram, and it does have to involve a right angle. So please remember what base times height means. Base times height does not mean length times width, because this is not a rectangle, and it's not going to involve the slanty bit of the parallelogram, at least the other slanty bit. Now, as you can see, parallelograms can be cut in half with a diagonal line, and they always create two congruent triangles. So a formula to find the area of a triangle has been developed from this particular fact. And so the area of a triangle is very similar. It's based on the area of a parallelogram. And you can see with the symbols down here. A parallelogram can be decomposed, that means cut into pieces, into two congruent triangles. So the area A of a triangle is 1/2 the product of the base times the height. And that either can be written as a fraction, base times height multiplied by the fraction 1/2, or you can actually write it as an improper fraction, base times height divided by 2 as the denominator. Now, if we look down here, it tells us more information about congruent figures. There are figures that are the same size and the same shape. A parallelogram is formed by two congruent triangles. Since congruent triangles have the same area, the area of a triangle is 1/2 the parallelogram. So this is restating what we have already talked about. In the first example they've done for us, they're showing a triangle that is on top of graph paper. And so they're not actually labeling the length of the height and the length of the base. This particular triangle is a right triangle, which makes it easier to visualize the formula of a triangle. And don't forget, the formula of a triangle is based on the fact that we are visualizing an imaginary congruent other triangle. We are finding the area of that rectangle or parallelogram, and then we're dividing it in half because we only want the area of the triangle. So we're going to count the units, count the graph units to figure out what the base and the height is. So this base is going to be 6, and this height's going to be 4. So they are using the formula 1/2 base times height. So 1/2, 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24, and then 1/2 times 24 is the same as 24 over 1/2, and then we get the improper fraction. So this might make it a little easier for you to visualize. Then all you have to do is either know your basic math facts, or you can calculate it if you want to. 1, 2, and the answer is 12 square units. All right, so in the second example, we're doing exactly the same thing. We're going to visualize our parallelogram. We're going to find the area of that parallelogram, and then we're going to divide it by 2. The only complication here is that we are using decimals. Yay! Okay, so 1/2 base times height. We're going to multiply 12 and 1/10 by 6 and 4/10, you will get 77 and 44 hundredths. And again, so to calculate that, you're just going to solve the multiplication 3-digit by 2-digit, solve it as you normally would. You would actually move the decimal when you find the product over 2 times. Okay, and that's how they would solve that. Come to Math Help if you don't know how to multiply decimals, please. Okay, so that's going to be the area of this particular triangle. After you get the 77 and 44 hundredths, you divide that by 2 and you get 38 and 72 hundredths. Okay, we're going to do one of these practice problems. This one is fairly straightforward. The only thing you'll have to remember is to find the base. You have to count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3 is the height. And base times height would be 18. And then you divide it by 2 to get that. And so that's pretty straightforward. So, okay, hey, what is 18 divided by 2? Exactly. So the area for this would be 9 square units. So now we're going to look at how to find the area of this particular triangle. It does involve fractions. Now, the formula for the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, or you can use base times height and then divide that number by 2. Okay. When we're using fractions, a lot of times it's better to multiply the base times height and then end up multiplying the 1/2 instead of dividing by 2, because it's the same thing, but it's just easier to do when you have fractions to deal with the fractional form. So the first thing we're going to do is the base times height part. So we're going to find the area of the parallelogram, and then we're going to divide it by 2 to find the area of just the triangle. So here's our imaginary parallelogram, and then we're going to find that, but then divide it by 2. Or actually, we're going to multiply it by 1/2, same thing. So let's do the base times height. So we have 9 3/4 times 7. Okay. The first thing we have to do is change the mixed number into an improper fraction. The denominator will still be 4. But now we have to find out how many numbers of pieces are going to be in the numerator. So 9 groups of 4 pieces plus 3. Go ahead and calculate that for me. What is 9 times 4 plus 3? Okay, you're correct. That answer is going to be 39. So now we're going to multiply that by 7. And in order to multiply that, we're going to make the 7 into an improper fraction also. 7 is the same thing as 7 divided by 1. Okay. When we look to see if we can simplify before multiplying, we cannot, because 7 is not a multiple of 4. And of course, 31 is a multiple of 1, but you'll just get 31 again. So 4 times 1 is 4. Now I need everyone to go ahead and calculate what 39 times 7 is. That's supposed to be 39. Go ahead and answer that for me, please. Okay, you've got 273 divided by 4. 273 fourths is going to be your answer for what the base times height is. And if this was a parallelogram, we would go ahead and divide that down and turn it back into a mixed number. But remember, we only want to know what half of the parallelogram is. So, and dividing this by 2 is not the best way to go. So we're going to find the equivalent by multiplying this by 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this down here just because I need more room. So we have base times height, which was 273 fourths. Now we're going to multiply it by 1/2, which is the same as dividing it by 2. Okay. So 230. I mix my numbers around sometimes. I'm sorry. In my brain, I'm thinking the right thing though. So 273 times 1 is 273. And what is 2 times 4? That would be 8. So the final step to determining what the area of this triangle would be is to divide 273 by 8. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so 8 goes into 27 3 times, subtract 24, bring the 3 down, bring the other 3 down. 8 goes into 33 4 times, subtract the 32, you get 1 as your remainder. And we're not going to leave it as remainder 1, we're going to say 1, and then what we divided by was 8, so it's going to be 1/8. So the area of this triangle is going to be equivalent to 34 and 1/8 square feet. Okay, well that's okay. All right, so I want you to think about the difference between multiplying by 1/2 and dividing by 2. There's no difference, but sometimes it's better to, and usually if it's a decimal or a whole number, it's better to multiply the base times height and just divide by the whole number 2. But if you're dealing with fractions, it's a lot simpler to just multiply the base times height, and then again, as it's still a fraction, multiply it by 1/2. So you have to think carefully about which version of the formula to use, but either way, you're going to get the same answer. Okay, so we're going to do a missing dimension problem. We're going to walk through and look at one they've done for us. And we've done these before. You take the formula, you put in the information that they give you, and then you solve for whatever is an unknown factor at this point, unknown number. So we have this particular triangle. We know the area is 24 and 9/10. We know that the height is 6, but we don't know what the base is. So we're going to replace everything that we do know. 24 and 9/10 is equal to base times 6 divided by 2. Okay, and since these are decimals, this will be the best version of that particular formula to use. So we multiply. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit different. We want to get the base by itself since that's unknown. So they want us to get rid of this 2. So if this is divided by 2, we're going to multiply each side by 2. So when we multiply by 2, I'll try and turn my pen on. Okay, hang on. Okay, now it turned on. I was stuck for a second. So we multiply by 2. This becomes 2 over 2, and it cancels out to be 1. And so now all we have is base times 6. So 24 and 9/10 times 2 is 49 and 8/10. So now we have base times 6. To get rid of the 6, again, we're going to divide both sides by 2. This cancels out to be 1, base is by itself. We divide this side by 6, and then base is equal to 8 and 3/10. So we've done very similar problems before. You just have to stop and think, what operation is this? This was division, so we multiplied. This was multiplication, so we divided. You always have to do the inverse, which might be an important thing to remember about this lesson. Which formula version to use, and perhaps when do we use what operation. Okay, that being said, think carefully about what you learned in today's lesson, and I want you to tell me one important thing that you should remember about it. Go ahead and answer that for me, please. Thank you for your thoughtful response. I need everyone to come to the live session. We're going to do some more practice problems together. You'll be able to ask any questions that you need. Thank you. Take care.